So I doubt I'll ever become a marketing genius, because I just don't believe that there is any secret shortcut or any 7 days to mastery of anything that's substantial. I think if you really want to develop a strong, substantial guitar technique, then you have to put the hours in. And that doesn't mean that you can't learn licks and tricks and things like that, but I tend to view those as kind of fluff that sits on top of the real technique. And this is very true for the kinds of the fingerstyle electric guitar techniques that I talk about as well. With these, you really do have to put the time and effort in them to build up that technique, to take it up to the level that maybe you want to achieve. And I use the term woodshedding to describe the kinds of extended practice periods that you have to put in order to develop this. And by this I mean putting in hours a day for weeks and months at a time in order to really hone and develop that technique. And it's interesting when I look at other guitarists that I admire. When you look at the biography, when you look at the history and how they developed their techniques as well, there's almost certainly a period of time in their history where they've just dedicated themselves to the instrument for a sustained period of time. And the same is very true with me as well. Now, with the kinds of techniques that I do, you know, these kinds of fingerstyle techniques that I'm using, as I've said before, the speed's always been there. The speed's there because if you can drum your fingers on a tabletop, then you can develop the speed. You can see you've already got the speed, but what you don't have is the evenness. What you don't have yet is the accuracy, and you don't have that left-hand, right-hand coordination. So those are the kinds of things that you're working on when you're trying to develop a technique like this. Now, typically, I'm the kind of guy who's really structured about how I approach this kinds of practice and this kinds of practice planning. So I thought this week I'd show you how I worked on the pentatonic scale, for example, and how I applied this kind of finger picking to the pentatonic scale. So let's zoom in and I'll go through this with you. So what I'd do is I'd just work on the pentatonic scale, every position going up the neck. But in each position, what I'd do is I'd just take a small fragment of that, a little 3-note fragment to start with, and just see if I can play that nice and smoothly. And I'd use the picking pattern that I've talked about before, thumb, third, second, first. And I'd start with my thumb, and then I'd start with my third finger. I'd start the phrase with my second finger, and then start the phrase with my first finger. And make sure that each one of those phases was as even as the other ones as well. And if there was anything that was problematic, then that would be the thing that I'd work on. So that's the first group of 3 notes, and then move on to the next group of 3 notes. Then the next group. Across every position of the pentatonic scale. And once I'd done that, I'd work on 4-note groups. And then 5-note groups. And then 6-note groups. And again, working across every group of 6 notes. Trying to find the areas in any of the patterns where the picking feels awkward or the fingering feels awkward, or I can't play it as smoothly and evenly as I can in some of the other positions. And again, those weak spots are the areas that I'm drilling on. And so you can imagine something like this. As you apply it over the days and weeks, your technique can't help but get stronger. And that's really the whole point of this. So that's it. Now, when I was working through this, I I did draw out a table of what I called metronome equivalences, which are really just working out what metronome value I should use when I'm playing 3-note groups, 4-note groups, 5-note groups, 6-note groups, so my picking speed is the same across all of them. And I've created a little PDF. I'll attach it to the description field, so by all means download it, but it just shows you that. So across the top it says, you know, you have the notes per click that you want to play, whether that's 3 notes, 4 notes, 5 notes. And it just sort of says, you know, we set the metronome to 80 beats a minute if you're doing 3 notes, and that's the equivalent of 60 if you're doing 4 notes, or 48 if you're doing 5 notes. And so it's just a chart of these equivalences, which might help you as well. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully that was useful for you. As I say, this is a big commitment. It's a long-term plan. But if you do apply yourself, you'll emerge with a technique that will take you that one step further than most guitarists will ever go. So, you know, it's up to you whether you want to do this or not. But anyway, we'll chat next time. Goodbye.